All right, let's get started. Okay, we're going to be recording this for people who might have to duck out or anyone who wants to reference it later. So we'll be recording the whole thing. I'm Gracie Peruzzi. I'm one of the artistic directors of Nozama Dance Collective. I'll let Jen introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Kuhnberg. I'm the director of OnStage Dance Company. And for those of you not familiar, we're a nonprofit dance company performance space in Malden. And Gracie, I don't know if you want to share more about Nozama and what you guys do.
Yeah, so we are a modern dance company based in Cambridge. We're committed to telling the stories of the female experience, the empowerment movement. We've been working since 2013. I co-direct with Natalie Shera, and we have been really just focusing on women's reactions in the current political and social climates right now. So we've been working on a couple of really cool things. We're excited and venturing into the virtual world too. So excited. And then, so a little bit about the Empower One Another series. This really came about because of a collaboration between Jen and I. Jen owning OnStage Dance Company in Malden. We were lucky enough to be a part of her summer series where she talked about if anyone has any ideas for this space, wants to create anything new in this space, has any ideas for the dance community. And I had this idea of bringing dance companies together to create works together and collaborate. And Jen said, let's do it. So fostering collaboration is a really big part of our series. And we're committed to developing a community of artists and directors in the dance space. Sometimes companies don't even realize that they've crossed paths, and we really want to foster collaboration, bring artists together, and in the meantime, help companies to build foundations for sustainability and to be able to really share the resources and experiences that they've had to better themselves and other dancers and artists. Anything else to add, Jen, about our series?
That's a really good overview. Yeah. You kind of highlighted that. Yes, my goal is always who has an idea, who wants to do something, and then let's go and play. So that's sort of the basis of our Empower One Another, is how to get companies and choreographers, dance makers to work together more than what's common in our local community.
Yeah, and we'll talk at the end about how we are adjusting Empower One Another for these new times, but we'll come to that at the end. So Jen's kick us off with how to find your voice. So first, before we really dive in, we're speaking to emerging artists. And when we think of emerging artists, we're thinking of those who are really just embarking on finding their voice in the dance community, dancers who might be starting a company, who might have started a company a year or two ago, who have created a piece or two and are really trying to figure out how to build a company. Or maybe you're someone who's had a company for a few years and are thinking, man, this is tough. And I wish I'd known some things going into this. I wish I'd had some mentors and some resources I didn't have before. So wherever you are in this spectrum, you've come to the right place of finding new resources to better your company, better your path. And so when we're speaking, we're not assuming that you have a ton of experience. We're not assuming you have none. We're hoping that everyone can kind of find something in this for them. And we're here for you. So if afterwards you're like, hey, this part really spoke to me, shoot us an email and we're here for you. Jen, this is all about finding your voice.
Yes, about finding your voice. So, sort of going along with what Gracie was just saying is, regardless of where you are in the process of your company, whether it's just an idea at this point or you've been at it for a couple of years already, I want you to think about the prompts that we have, in this PowerPoint, in this presentation, and, think about how it relates to your vision. Even if you've already been established for a period of time, these are things that you can always go back to and reevaluate, whether it be, today after listening to us talk, or even in the future as your company and your company mission evolves. OnStage, we're about to celebrate our 10th year, and there's still things that we are reevaluating or thinking about or tweaking or you know, just the way that companies kind of naturally evolve over time. So again, we are thinking about this in terms of emerging artists, but certainly a lot of these things can be, you know, addressed at any point in your career as a dance company director. So first up, the most important question, what inspires you to create, right? What is it about dance, about choreography that inspires you? What are you passionate about in the context of the art that you make? You know, and this is often what will and what should shape the kind of company that you're going to have and the kind of work that you could do. So that is step one. Our next question is, what inspired you to create your own company versus join another company, right? Because Gracie and I have talked about this. It is a million times easier to just join another company, right? Learn their work, follow their schedule, et cetera, et cetera. Leading your own company is a huge time commitment with significant financial obligations. And, you know, we've also said, you know, we're not saying that to deter you or to scare you, but it's a really important aspect that you have a clear, you know, understanding of all of the things that go into running a company, right? So all that being said, you want to make sure that whatever the vision is that you have, whatever inspiration you're following to start your own company, or, you know, if you've been in it for a few years, you know, it has to be something that you're very passionate about and that you're very committed to. I think we can all agree on that. So now moving into the actual work that you're going to be creating or that you want to create, and thinking about what defines your choreography's intent, right? So what is the aim or the purpose of the work that you create? What kind of emotions, feelings, thoughts are you trying to evoke in your audience? And, you know, we can think about it, is it the movement, the storytelling, the performance elements that are reflecting this vision, right? Is the dance that you're creating supporting your intentions as an artist? And, you know, all art, all dance is subjective. But in my opinion, for dance to be successful, it has to be something that moves an audience in some way, good or bad. Obviously, as artists, we want it to always be good, but sometimes it's not. But, you know, as a choreographer, for me, the worst thing is, you know, to have an audience who just doesn't care one way or another, right? So thinking about what kind of impact are you trying to make, and how do you achieve that goal? Which kind of leads into our next question is, what stories are you aiming to tell with your choreography? So, you know, Gracie talked a little bit about what her company does. She has a very specific and clear mission. At OnStage, our mission is a little bit more broad. It's more about, you know, building community through various dance styles and various levels of dance experience, and, you know, creating work in a sort of community-based kind of environment. So we don't necessarily have a central theme that we focus on. Our work can kind of vary in different ways, but that's sort of a reflection of, you know, our company setup. So when thinking as a dance maker, as a company, do you want your work to evolve around a central theme, right, like Nozama does? Do you want to focus on only one style of dance, right? Do you want to explore several? At OnStage, we do pretty much every kind of concert style dance there is. And this is sort of a controversial, potentially, way of saying this, but is your work for fun or entertainment, right? Or are you trying to ask your audience to dig deeper on a particular topic? And I say that wanting to be clear that, you know, there's no inferior or superior way to do that. And just because, you know, the dance that you create isn't rooted in like some really serious topic doesn't mean, you know, that it's not valuable. I personally love a good crowd pleaser, right? Or, you know, a piece that's a celebration of dance, of technique, of musicality. It's fun, it's good vibes. You know, I love work that's like that. So not everything has to be, this is a mission and we're trying to make a statement and we're trying to make you think, right? But there's a range, right? So where do you want to fall in that range, right? I wrote in my notes, not every dance needs to be a PhD thesis, right? But it can be, it certainly can be. So, and yeah, I'm glad that, you know, I'm seeing a note in the chat about, you know, valid points about you know, the different kinds of dance that we can create, and that it's, you know, there isn't one that's better than the other. It's really just about how is it true to what you're trying to do, what you're trying to say, and how do you achieve that. So yeah, I think I'm going to segue into our mission statement. Again, feel free if you have any questions or comments or things you want us to bring up as we're talking about all these things. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about it. So our next slide is about defining your mission statement. And you know, your mission statement is going to be as little as 1 to 2 sentences that articulate what your company aims to do, right? So what exactly is a mission statement? And the content and the length will vary based on the kind of organization that you have, and you know, a number of different factors. But in short, a mission statement explains why your organization exists, right? What is your purpose? What are your goals? What are you providing? Who are you providing it to? And what is your company's philosophy or your culture? So think about this statement as almost a guidepost, right, for how you operate going forward. And it's meant to keep you on target for accomplishing your goals, right, as a company director. When someone reads your mission statement, they should have a very clear understanding of who you are, right? And you're going to be asked for this mission statement in one form or another on almost every kind of grant application. You know, whether they specifically want your word-for-word mission statement or they're asking you to sort of summarize it, you're going to be asked about this. So it's really important that you craft one that is professional and it's very accurate to who you are. And so we've listed here 2 examples of mission statements, and I want us to take a look at these. And as we read through them, think about, you know, when reading this, do you understand the company's goals? Do you get a sense of who they are as an organization? So the first one, Alvin Ailey, a company that hopefully we're all very familiar with, right? World famous. And so let's read their mission statement that's on their website. The mission of Alvin Ailey Dance Foundation is to further the pioneering vision of the choreographer, dancer, and cultural leader, Alvin Ailey, by building an extended cultural community which provides dance performances, training and education, and community programs for all people. This performing arts community plays a crucial social role, using the beauty and humanity of the African American heritage and other cultures to unite people of all races, ages, and backgrounds. So very clear, all laid out. You know exactly what kind of company this is, what they offer, and who they offer it to. And so then the next one is Connections Dance Theater. This is a local company, if you're not familiar, local company led and run by Jenny Oliver. Amazing group and very well known in the local scene. So I definitely encourage you guys to look her up and look them up if you're not familiar. So let's take a look at their mission statement here. The mission of the collective is to create research-based choreography reflecting themes and ideas constructed from the indigenous diaspora and socio-political events of today that contribute to the fabric of the American perspective. Right, so I love this mission statement. I think, you know, it's just very clear why they're so successful. They're very well funded, partly, you know, because they have such a strong mission. Their work is very clear. Their vision is very clear. And you know, often when we're crafting our work or we're crafting our mission statements, a lot of times we stay very focused to thinking about our audience and who we're performing for. But in talking about our mission statement, I want us to think about how it's also important to think about the larger dance community, right? The funders and the grantors as a whole, because these are the people who are going to be investing in you. So when you have a clear mission and a vision, it's easier for funders to back you up, right? It's your job as a director to make them want to give you money, right? And the place where it all starts is your mission statement, because that is going to really set the tone and the pace for your success going forward. So if you've been at it for a little bit and you either don't have a mission statement or you haven't looked at it in a while, this is a really good time to revisit it and, you know, think about what you want to say about who you are and how you're presenting yourself to the greater community.
Yeah, and I will add for Nozama that we have updated our mission statement numerous times over the last 7 to 8 years. This is not something that needs to, you know, always be exactly the same throughout your time. As you grow and evolve, your mission does as well. And as you really find your niche, it's important to keep looking back and making sure that it is speaking to your work, and just have it in a bios and blurbs document so that you can keep referring back to it.
Yeah, I definitely
Like Jen says, you'll use it.
yeah, it's definitely, you know, think of it as a working document. I mean, you don't want to be changing it every month so that, you know, nobody's really clear on what you're doing, but definitely a working document that you can come back to when needed.
Definitely. So now we go to defining your company. And when we're talking about this, we're talking about really the model of your company that best fits your goals. So you've drafted your mission statement, you have articulated what it is that you're aiming to do in the dance community. So now you really have to figure out what model of company makes the most sense for you. And this is first and foremost going to provide sustainability for your company. When you really have a sense of not only what you're working towards, but who you're working towards it with and what the structure of your company is. It's a business, essentially. At the end of the day, a dance company is a business. And so knowing who's running it and what the structure is and what your goals are will only benefit you in the long run. So the two that we're really going to talk about are a top-down model versus a collective. So what I first think of for a top-down model is it one person who's really leading and they have the company members under them who are looking to them for the guidance, for the main objectives? Is there really one leader and then we have the company members under? Or for a collective, there's a lot more input from the company members themselves. You have more of a leadership group, you have more people who are collaborating with it creatively. There's a reason Nozama is called Nozama Dance Collective. From the beginning, we have employed our dancers to also be choreographers. It was always really important to us to have dancers who were choreographers. And we're really now, as we're going into our 2020-2021 season, we're talking a lot about leadership roles. So for Nozama, it personally has been a collective, but there's no right or wrong. There really isn't. And so what I encourage current directors, future directors, is to say, who are your people? You know, who are you going into this with? When I was starting out with Natalie, we had a group. We had a group of people who had danced together in college. The origin story of Nozama is that we were a group of women who danced together at Boston University and dance theater group under the direction of Mickey Taylor Pinney. And we graduated wanting to have another outlet for dance. And so we created Nozama for that. So we had our group, we had our collective, but maybe you are an independent choreographer right now who's saying, I'm looking for a group. And there are a lot of great resources for that as well. The Boston Dance Alliance has an open audition every year. I'm excited to see how they're going to do it this year. It's always in September. But that's a great outlet if you're looking for dancers. There's the Boston Dancers and Choreographers page on Facebook if you're looking for people to dance with you. But you really kind of see, like, who are your people right now? Do you have your established group? Are you looking to establish one? And then once you have it, you want to really find ownership in the membership, which is a phrase that Jen came up with that I absolutely love, which is, you know, you want your group to be invested in your company, to help with the sustainability of your company, people who are really invested in the mission, who believe in the group, who, you know, are committed the way that you are. And that can look like a lot of different things. You know, you want for people to first and foremost feel committed. So what does that look like to you? Do they pay annual dues that help you to really get the company going? And that means that then they have a financial investment, and therefore with the performances that you might do, they get some of that back. That could be an option. Is it that they have a leadership role? Do they help with the fundraising for your group? Do they help with the grant writing for your group? Do you have somebody who does marketing for your group? You know, there's a lot of different ways that you can have your dancers, you know, give back to the group that then gives them a sense of investment. There's also nothing wrong with being a dancer who gets to come in and be a part of the group, and that's your commitment, And if what you get out of the group is a performance that you're really excited about, being able to include dance in your adult life is huge. It's something that not all of us get to do. So if that is the commitment you're looking for, and that their dancers are looking for, that's phenomenal too. So it's really thinking of what works best for the people that you have, what works best for the dancers that you have or you're looking to have if you're still building, and then repaying them for that investment. Is it producing a certain kind of show every year? Is it a certain number of performances every year? Is it teaching, like giving them the tools to choreograph? You really want to find out what your dancers want to get out of it so that you are all working together to have a sustainable company. And at the end of the day, what I encourage directors to do is to utilize your dancers' big, beautiful brains. I will speak very candidly that I am a director who worked with Natalie at the beginning, and we were like, we're going to do all of this ourselves. And I am a type A person that does a lot of things myself. And that hasn't always benefited Nozama. And we've really restructured now to have a leadership board, that we're going to have women who are taking on different roles and really utilizing their big, beautiful brains for what they bring to the table. And that offers them an investment in the company, that we can promote sustainability for our company, but also it gives back. So you keep this cycle going of what works best for your company and how to utilize the big brains everybody's bringing to the table. At the same time, if you have a top-down model where that doesn't necessarily work the same way, it totally works. It's just a matter of figuring out what works best for you. And as I go through, any questions? Because we're going to be switching to, we can't, and I have rehearsal. Or Jen, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to chime in and add, in terms of the top-down versus collective, that there also are ways to do it almost like a hybrid, and that's sort of where I would put OnStage in that spectrum. Is that, it is top-down in the sense of, myself as director, and there are very formal auditions to be a choreographer or a dancer for that particular season. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will be in the future. And, it's up to me to decide which choreographers' work I want to select. And then I am, essentially assigning dancers to those pieces, of course, with some parameters of how that works. But at the end of the day, I sort of manage how all of that manifests. That being said, I also do have a board, and that board has sort of taken various forms over the 10 years, but currently, I have a board with people that are members of the company who I trust immensely and who have skills that I just don't have. Amy Foley is here on the call right now, and she has been, financial advisor extraordinaire, not to mention, just some sort of, somebody to just like run ideas off of. I have other people who, are experts in fundraising, in marketing, in, social events or social media. And so, those people really help take on those tasks that are not necessarily in my wheelhouse. And it's a great thing to be able to, work with dancers who, are performing with you on stage, but also have this extra investment in the company because they're bringing their skills to the table. But then I also do have dancers who just, they pay their tuition dues, they come in, they perform, and that's the extent of their commitment. So there are ways to sort of, expand in a lot of different ways.
Awesome. So now we're veering into, you've established your mission statement, you've established the model of your company, and you are creating work in accordance with this mission. So now you are saying to people, I have rehearsal, and also I'm leading it. I really can't miss it. So now I think that one of the things that we often overlook is how to structure rehearsals that really lend themselves to what you're looking to create and ultimately the sustainability of your company. Having a rehearsal structure that helps you to achieve your goals is trickier than you might think, and it comes with a lot of practice, but we first encourage you to think about what is the goal of rehearsal? And we think of it as, is it a hard rehearsal or a soft rehearsal? So a hard rehearsal being, we are aiming to accomplish this, this, and this. We're hoping to get through this minute of choreography. I've created this phrase. I want for everyone to learn it by the end. Or is it more of a soft rehearsal where you're experimenting? You might be improvising. Nozama Dance Collective is really committed to improvisation, and so we incorporate those workshops into our rehearsal from time to time. So you really want to think about what are we looking to get out of it? Are we teaching a very definitive phrase, or are we experimenting? You can also have a range there. You can do a couple of different things. But setting expectations for what you aim to accomplish in rehearsal, and also expectations for your dancers. So with Nozama, we have a warm-up at the beginning of rehearsal, but we don't have time for the full hour warm-up that we wish we had. We are a company that rehearses for 2 hours each week on Sundays. It works well for our dancers for their time commitments. It's allowed us all to include it in our lives. So realistically, we have 2 hours. So we would love to have an hour of warm-up, but that's not really feasible. So I expect my dancers to come pretty warm, and then we have a company warm-up together. So that's an expectation you as a director have to set. You can't just assume they're going to figure that out. That's not fair to them. So you set that expectation. You then figure out a way that works best for you of how you're going to relay those expectations. What I love to do is send out a message a couple of days before and then the morning of rehearsal. And I tell my dancers, we're going to be working on this section. We're going to be experimenting with this part. We're going to have time to work on this. That way they know what they're getting into. They know what to expect. They know what to review from maybe weeks before. They know what videos to review. It helps to give your dancers a set of expectations, and then we're all on the same page. And so with that, you take those expectations and you prepare an agenda. We're saying, okay, so we have 2 hours for rehearsal. We're going to do about a 20-minute warm-up, and then we really want to work on this section. We want to teach about 30 seconds worth of choreography. I, in college, was taught that a minute of choreography typically takes about an hour to teach. And I've always really gone by that rule. As you work with your dancers, you're going to learn if that fits best for them or not. But so be realistic. If you want to get through a minute of choreography, that's probably going to take at least an hour. And so with that, all right, so now I'm at an hour and 20. I have 40 minutes to play. Do I want to use that for some improvisation exercises? Do I want to use that to practice some partnering techniques? Another thing that we really commit ourselves to, you know, thinking about having some wiggle room. You don't want to chock it full and say, all right, we're going to get all of this in exactly the 2 hours with no wiggle room, because we need some breaks. But really budget your time wisely. Think about, okay, so if I want to be done with warm-up by 3:20 and it's 3:40, how am I going to adjust to make sure that we accomplish the goals that we set in? Really making sure that you have those clear goals as you go in so that you know what you're looking to achieve. But then if you get to be a little bit behind, you know where you can tweak. I really recommend, so as far as roles within rehearsal, being the director who's leading, you can organize your rehearsal a couple of different ways. You can be the one who's not only directing the rehearsal, but also the choreographer who's teaching. You can be the rehearsal director who's keeping tabs on time. But I would say that you think about it in those three. You have, you know, the director who keeps in mind the overall goals of the company. How is this piece incorporating itself into our repertoire? We'll get to what that really means. But you have the director of the company, you have the choreographer of the work, can be a separate person, could be the same, but you have the choreographer who has the vision of the piece, who's teaching it. And then you have a rehearsal director who is making sure that we're on time, keeping an eye out for, you know, stage pictures and any problems. Are there any traffic patterns, things that you might not have anticipated? We've all been there where we go to create this piece, we've worked on in our heads, and then we get there and we're like, ah, shoot, that doesn't work. Let's rework it. And there is some trial and error with being able to go in and having these clear expectations. And then rehearsal does not go the way you planned sometimes. And that is not a function of failure or success. It just comes with the territory. So what do you do if you don't meet the goals of rehearsal? So say you are someone who's been working on this 3.5 minute piece and you're hoping to perform that piece in a month, and you still have, 2 minutes to go, and you don't have that many rehearsals, let's be realistic about what you can accomplish, how fast you have to teach it. It's not fair to ask your dancers to learn an entire piece in a matter of, one rehearsal. So really figuring out, like, okay, if we were hoping to finish this section by today and we don't, can we adjust next rehearsal to finish it? Can we maybe have to negotiate and pull away some of the softer elements of rehearsal, the improvisation, the tweaking, the workshopping. As a choreographer, that's where a lot of it comes on you to work outside of rehearsal, to adjust for that, to prepare for the future rehearsals where you're going to make up for what maybe you didn't accomplish, but also maybe you got into the rehearsal and you're like, oh, this works way better than I anticipated. I need to go rework this. So I think the overall goals here are to go in with set goals and to go in being prepared, but also to be flexible, and also to know that things don't always work out exactly as we planned. Again, going back to my theme of big, beautiful brains, we all have them, especially in Nozama. I love that my dancers contribute. They add phenomenal value. And so we tweak things based on their input. And sometimes that means going back to the drawing board and tweaking, but being flexible enough to do that, I think, is something that will really benefit you in the long run, just because your company will be that much stronger and your work will be that much stronger. Jen, what do you have to add on rehearsal goals?
Yeah, just thinking about how the hard rehearsal versus soft rehearsal also correlates to the top-down versus collective, because I think that those two really go hand in hand, because it's, when I think about the structure of how OnStage works, we don't do any soft rehearsal unless we're doing a separate, building a piece for a specific festival or something that's outside of our main production. I would say we are exclusively hard rehearsal people. It's our choreographer sets what we're going to do. You're going to learn this specific choreography. And yeah, there's some, if there's a couple 8 counts where there's an improv section or something like that, then yes, we will play around. But overall, we're not coming in with the expectation that we're going to play and experiment if it's for the OnStage main production. So, thinking about what kind of company do I want, the top down versus the collective, and then what does that mean for the type of rehearsals that I need to be able to achieve those goals?
Definitely, and it can shift from time to time. We definitely, for Nozama, have periods where we have to have harder rehearsals where we're working to finish pieces, but we also have room to experiment. And I think finding a balance, if you are more of a collective, is important. If you're a collective, then having that time for dancer input, I think, is really critical. And so then, all right, so we've covered our mission statement, we've established our company structure and how we're structuring our rehearsals. So now we're thinking you've built a piece or 2 of your work, let's say you've finished 3 pieces. How does your choreography really link together? I think that this is something that I really would have, being about 2 or 3 years in, this was when we really started to think about this. We really started to think about, okay, we have our mission statement and we have these great pieces we've done, but do they necessarily link together to create a repertoire where you would say that's Nozama? That is what that company is striving for. And so really thinking about, how does your choreography link together to create a full, cohesive repertoire? And that's tricky because you want to have variety. You want to be creating pieces that are both broad enough to relate to the masses and not be very specific to one audience, but also be specific enough that they do speak to your unique mission and set you apart from other companies. As much as we are all about fostering collaboration and we really aim for directors and companies to work together, it is important to look for uniqueness with your group when it comes to fundraising, when it comes to getting accepted into festivals and performances. So what you want to do is find that balance between being accessible but unique. And with that, I think the first step is finding versatility with your pieces. A big one is sizes of your cast. say you have 6 dancers, all of your pieces should not necessarily employ all 6 dancers. First of all, you will exhaust them and they will be very tired by the end of that set. But having solos, having duets, giving time to tell different stories, have the dancers have different interactions with one another, really adds to the versatility of your work and also the tone of your pieces. So when Nozama was in this 2 to 3 year, we did have a range, but we really found, we were telling pretty, I would say, let's see, I wonder how Nat would have described that, but more so real, like we were telling pretty, we were not necessarily light and airy company. We were telling some, you know, pretty, not somber, but more, just more serious pieces. Let's go with serious. And we have a couple of those that are still cores to our rep, and we're very proud of them. But finding that range is really important for audiences. You want to take them on a journey and not just be in this one plateau of emotional quality. This is a lot. This is a point we do not expect anyone, especially people with, you know, in that first year or two to be at this point. First of all, having more than one piece in your rep is a massive accomplishment. Having multiple pieces that speak to your work is something to be celebrated. We're saying that once you have this point where you either do have those pieces or you're starting to create the ideas for those pieces, starting to sketch them out, keep in mind having versatility, having a range of not only the storyline, the tone, the size. This is also going to benefit you immensely when you start to apply to perform these pieces. Not every festival is looking for a large group piece. Not every festival has a stage that can accommodate a large group piece. Some festivals will see your application and email you and say, hey, we're actually looking for something that's a little more upbeat. We love your work though. Do you guys have anything? And you want to be the company that says, yep, sure do. And this is the video for it. Oh, which reminds me, I hate to be the one that goes back, but I do feel it's important to note when you're saying I'm leading rehearsal, always film your rehearsals. Always film what you accomplish in rehearsals. Always film the versions of pieces that you have for rehearsals. You never know, even if you're not sending in a final submission of a piece, you never know when someone might say, hey, what are you guys working on? What's your latest rehearsal video look like? And you want to have that. You want to have it ready. You want to have a folder in your Google Drive with your company's name that has that bio and blurbs document Jen talked about with your mission. You want to have the structure and you want to have video files. Even if it's just rehearsals, some people would prefer to see rehearsal videos. But regardless, having this range of different pieces you're working on will really benefit you, not only for being invited to different kinds of performances, but being in a place where your company is telling a variety of stories that reach even more audience members, and more audience members means a broader community, means better sustainability for your company.
Yeah, the versatility thing is huge. Just anecdotally, believe it or not, OnStage over the 10 years, I think we have somewhere, upwards of 275 pieces in our repertory if we look at the entire 10-year span of two big productions a year. But it also makes applying for festivals, it still work, but it's kind of easy for us because, we can say, okay, is this outdoor, indoor? Is, large scale or not? Is it family friendly versus not? Are they speaking to a particular issue for this particular festival? And, we can scroll through our repertoire and say, this piece would be perfect, or this piece is great. Let's just tweak a little thing here. This one doesn't work outside and we just can't rearrange it. So, having that versatility so that you could theoretically apply for a large variety of different events, I think is really key to getting you out there in as many opportunities as you can.
And I don't know how that many pieces is possible, but that is impressive. But more so, if you are a director or a choreographer right now who either has a handful of pieces or you're looking to create, create to what speaks to you first. That's what's going to tell the richer story. tell the story. I always encourage my dancers when they are creating solos or when they're coming up with ideas for pieces for our company, tell the story you want to tell. You know, don't tell the story that you think you're supposed to tell. Tell the one you want to, and your vision and your passion will come through the choreography. Once you've done that, once you've created the piece that was sitting in your gut that you were ready to tell, if you're then struggling to think of how to add to your rep, how to expand your work, don't be afraid to contact directors with the video of that one. Say you have that one piece that was from your gut, that spoke to what story you were willing to tell. If you have that one and you're saying, I'm not quite sure where to go from here, message directors and ask for their input. I will raise my hand very high and say, please email me. I will put Jen on the spot. I'm sure she will, like, email both of us, ask for feedback of, you know, what avenue should I go now? What story do you think comes next? One thing that Natalie and I, when we were creating work, we thought of, what's the prequel to this piece and what's the sequel to this piece? Not necessarily the exact same tone, definitely not the same tone, not the same storyline, but what happened to these dancers before? What happened to them that led to this moment? Where are they now? How are they responding to this now? And it has really helped us to create pieces that have stayed in our rep for many, many years, because we thought of, well, this piece feels right. Where were these dancers before and after? Sometimes you surprise yourself. So now we go into applying to perform, and Jen and I are going to tag team this one as directors who have applied to many, 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 many shows, festivals, grants, but also directors who receive the applications for our own show. So we're speaking to not only our own experience of acceptance or rejection with what we've applied to, but also how we've made decisions when including artists in our show. So first, prepare your company's biography. So Jen, can you speak to a little bit of how this differs from the mission statement?
Yeah, so your company biography, and you know, obviously this is probably not even gonna really come about until you're at it for a little while, until you've been able to develop a biography. Although you could, of course, make that biography more of a choreographer, director biography of your own personal work. But whereas the mission is, you know, is speaking to what your goals are and how you're trying to shape your vision as a dance maker, your bio is really, you know, it's really your highlight reel, right? Giving us an idea of where have you been, what have you done, what have you accomplished, what have you been successfully accepted to in the past, or how have you created your own opportunities. Those are all things that could be included in your biography.
Add that to your bios and blurbs document and in your Google Drive.
Mm-hmm.
Every application will ask you for it. They also might ask you for an artist biography, which speaks a little bit more uniquely, but as Jen was saying, as you build, your company's biography will look a little different than your artist biography, but it's okay if for the beginning they're very similar. Mm-hmm. I've seen that a lot, and I never view that as a negative. So first, when you're applying to perform, you have your handful of pieces. You're excited to perform either as a guest artist in somebody's show, at a festival like Dance for World Community in Harvard. If you are looking to perform, you want to first look for what the festival or the production is looking for. Are they looking to, like Jen mentioned, are they looking to speak to a certain topic? Are the pieces going to be linked as far as what storyline they're telling? Are they looking for pieces to be performed outdoors? I will, again, be very candid in that Nozama in our early years applied for a couple of things that we didn't realize were outdoor grassy spaces, and we love to roll around on the floor. So being prepared to do that is important. And then, you know, how long of a piece are they looking for? There are some productions where there's a time limit, and if you go over that time limit, you are paying the festival a production fee to produce that work, or they might not actually look at your work if it's longer than a certain amount of time. Going back to the versatility with pieces, having pieces that are 6 minutes long versus 3 minutes long, there's a big benefit to having a range of lengths as well for this purpose. Jen, when you're thinking of looking for what a festival or production is looking for? What are some of the big things you think of?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so before I answer that, just sort of clarifying where I'm coming from within this perspective. I can't tell you how many applications I sift through as the director of OnStage, but also as a studio and performance space owner, where I produce, you know, a ton of showcases and festivals. I'm sifting through dozens over the years of applications from choreographers and dance company directors who are trying to, you know, get into these productions. And certainly over the years, I've sort of, you know, honed in on some of the red flags that I, you know, right away I know that like this is not going to be a good fit for the show, versus like what applications are super successful and I'm just immediately, I know, okay, we're going in the right direction here. So some of the festivals that I've done at OnStage, you know, I have the OnStage 360 where I'm asking dancers to either create or rework their pieces in the round, right? So, you know, looking to see if they've followed that prompt and how they're going to rearrange their piece. I have the residency program where I'm asking dancers to, you know, describe why the program would be an important stepping stone in their career. So certainly they're going to be having to, you know, explain where they are in their career at this point, how they're planning to use the space and use those resources, and basically, you know, convincing me to give them all, you know, those resources for free. So that's, you know, a component of the residency program. I've also had the summer performance series where, you know, dancers, company directors can produce a full length, evening length show. And so wanting to see those companies show that they have enough of a repertoire to be able to pull that off, and that they can, you know, be responsible for, you know, a certain amount of audience that are going to come in to see that show. So I've seen, you know, every iteration of an application at this point, from, you know, just a 3-minute piece that they're trying to get into production versus an evening length. And certainly a lot of things come into play when I'm looking through that and deciding, you know, is this a person that I want to be, you know, working with on this event? Is this someone that I kind of get the vibe that they're not taking it seriously, or they haven't really read through what this is even about? Because that's certainly a consideration, you know, as a producer, right? You want to make sure that everybody involved is very committed to whatever that production is about. So right off the bat, misspellings, grammatical errors, that's the first thing that tells me, like, okay, this person really just like threw it together, sent it off, didn't really read it, you know, didn't pull from their prepared documents of their mission statement or their bio. They just were sort of coming up with it on the fly. So maybe it was last minute, it was an afterthought, it wasn't a priority. Clearly not addressing the prompt or the mission of the event, right? So for Empower, we were very clear about what the point of that showcase was and what we're looking for. So the expectation is that people are going to be explaining how their work fits that Empower theme, even if the piece wasn't initially created with that in mind, but how can they either rework or highlight certain aspects to fit that theme. As I mentioned in the 360, wanting to you know, get some video footage that shows that they can rework the piece in the round. Yeah, so really addressing, you know, what the point of the event is, that you have read through all of the information that we as producers have put out there, and, you know, you've thought through how your work fits into that mission. If there's any missing elements, if we ask for certain links or photos, bios, video, you know, whatever information we've had, if anything is missing, it definitely speaks to, you know, how seriously you're taking the application, and if you even have those materials available. If your answer is really short, so sometimes, you know, we'll ask for, please describe how your piece fits into this mission, and you give one sentence, you know, it's hard to really judge, you know, what are we going to get when you show up to the event space. So unless they specifically say, we only want one sentence, which is rare, but it does happen, you definitely want to be fleshing out your ideas and, you know, showing that you have really thought this through. but at the same time, not writing a novel, because that's another thing. Sometimes, you know, I'll ask for a short paragraph and we have, you know, we get a whole giant thing. And that also makes me think that the person hasn't really read through the entire prompts, and that it was just sort of a copy and paste situation. And then the last thing is deadlines, right? So if the deadline has passed and you're reaching out saying, oh, I missed the deadline, like, is there any way that I can get in? Sometimes that works, but not usually. If you are, you know, if you've applied, but there's a deadline you have to submit the video at a later date, making sure that you get all those deliverables in. The last thing a producer wants to do is chase after directors for that information, and that delays all the production events that are happening behind the scenes, whether it's creating the program or creating any of the marketing materials. Missing all that information and having to email or call or text or something to get that is really not gonna put you in the full length of the.
Yeah, and I think that with that, you know, there's a lot of things that we do expect for artists and directors to be researching before they apply, looking for the objectives of the festival, what the festival is looking for, what the performance is looking for. But if you have any questions, there is always an email of somebody who you can contact with questions, and I highly encourage you to use that. I have had many applications become strengthened after I emailed saying, just to clarify, are you looking for something more like this or like that? And I think in general, just thinking for more to what Jen was saying, things to expect on an application if you haven't applied to one before. We've talked about mission statement, we've talked about company bio. They will always ask for videos of your work to have some sort of idea of what exactly you're submitting. That's where we go back to those important rehearsal videos. They'll ask for usually why you want to apply for this particular opportunity, really thinking through how this will benefit your company and how you can contribute to the performance is important. And then there's always, you know, a question of what kind of technical things do you need? What kind of lighting are you asking for? Personally, I always go with simple lighting that will accommodate the needs of the festival. If you do have a piece that requires very specific, you know, spotlights in certain places, some performances might allow that, and that is very cool, but it might be important to look at, you know, if you're asking for that in a place where they don't have complex lighting needs, you know, you want to look to those things ahead. So email before you apply saying, hey, we have this piece I think would be great. It has some tricky technical aspects to it. Can I talk those through with you? Much better to get ahead and email them. And then you already have created this connection with the person who's organizing the festival or the performance to say, oh, I'm going to look out for that. I'm going to look out for that application. And then I would encourage you, after you submit, what I like to do is send an email to that person and say, my name is Gracie Peruzzi. I'm one of the artistic directors of Nozama Dance Collective. I'm so excited to have applied. Thank you for your consideration. Let me know if you have any questions about my application. I have had numerous times where I've gotten replies to those and saying, thank you so much, I'll look out for it. And you've already made that connection. So then we are saying, once you've been accepted, first with the undertone of, if you ever receive a rejection, obviously it's a disappointment. I think it's always appropriate to email and saying, I'd love to get some feedback from you about how I can strengthen the work that we submitted or what I can do to improve our application moving forward. Jen, have you ever, I've gotten many emails where I've had really great conversations with directors about ways, and we've actually had people who we didn't accept for one of our performances that we brought in for the next one after having a conversation like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've had that with our main company performances with people who audition choreography. And so often what I'll try to do is when I email them back, if it's a rejection, I try to give feedback, you know, a little bit here and there. I'm not always able to do that, but I do try. But I certainly have had people who will respond and will, you know, ask questions about that, about why it wasn't selected or if there's something they can do going forward. And I'm happy to have those kind of conversations. And then it's very likely that those people reapply for choreography auditions for next season. And the chances of them getting selected are a lot higher because, you know, they're likely to have taken that feedback and, you know, applied it to their work. And, you know, then I'm happy to be able to pick them the next time. So certainly being open to those conversations on both sides is really, really helpful.
Yeah. There's also a commitment as a director to be open to negative feedback. It is hard. It is very hard to be a director who receives negative feedback, to receive feedback from somebody who's highly regarded who says, I just didn't get your work. I've gotten numerous bouts of negative feedback, and you have to take it in stride. There is no point in arguing with the person. Take an opportunity to learn something from it. It is a tough, tough world out there. But if you can be the director that can take negative feedback and find something positive about it, you will have a more sustainable company every time. But with that, once you are accepted, we want to address some general etiquette that we feel, again, we're talking to sustainability of your company, how to get asked back to perform again, how to leave a positive, lasting impression. Number one being committing to the time commitment of the show. That is there a tech? Is there a dress rehearsal? Are there deadlines by which you need to send in the music and the video? Do not be the director who does not reply to emails. Do not be the director that, as Jen said, you have to receive those hounding emails from person who's organizing the festival. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to you. You always think about it as that you took another artist's spot to be in this. They're producing your work and they're excited to do so. If you are in a position where you can't commit to the time commitment, be honest about it up front, and maybe it's not the right performance opportunity for you at that time. Doesn't mean that it couldn't be in the future, but it doesn't do you any good or the director of the performance any good to not be able to commit fully to the time commitment of that show.
And you risk being dropped from the show too, because I've certainly been in that position where, you know, I'll send maybe one follow-up email, but after that point, you know, you just don't want to be hounding somebody for that kind of information. And so you just say, okay, well, I'm going to release that spot and offer it to someone on the waiting list or whatever it might be. And so then you just, you know, you're accepted to a festival and now you've lost the spot because you weren't able to follow through on these, you know, extra things that we do.
Definitely. And then once you are a part, and so we're really speaking to, you were accepted to be an artist in a collaborative show, you were a guest artist in a show. This is not your self-producing work. This is you have applied to be a part of a larger show with other artists. Look at it as a networking opportunity. Get to know people. If you go into, I'm thinking of Nachmo as a great example. It's a performance where artists are encouraged. It's National Choreography Month in January. It is an opportunity for artists to get a kick in the butt, to create a piece in a month. And then there is a performance where this year there were 3 performances at the Arts and Armory. And there are about 12 other companies or choreographers there. If you go into an opportunity like that and you don't learn anybody's name, then you are doing yourself a disservice. It's a networking opportunity. At the same time, when you go into a situation like that, there's a certain level of professionalism, and you want to, as a director, think, how are your dancers representing themselves? How are they going in? You know, you are the director, they are a part of your company. Make sure that if any of them are asked, hey, I haven't heard of your company, what do you guys do? What is your mission statement? You know, what kind of work do you guys do? You want to make sure that they can answer those questions. It can't always be you answering them. So make sure that your dancers are going in and that they're representing your company the way that you would hope that they would. And then at the end, you've made friends. Always, always, always send the director or the producer of that production a thank you note, a handwritten, lovely thank you note. It will get you invited into performances time and time again.
Like a magic piece of paper.
It really is. All right, so with that, you have been a guest artist in shows, you've performed at festivals, you have built up your rep. Are you ready to produce your own show? Jen, what do you think?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, at this point, right, so you want to have looked through all of these things that we've just discussed and think about, yeah, can you take on what is quite a challenge of producing your own show? And, you know, there's so many different aspects to consider. Um, you know, what kind of venue are you looking for? Is it a kind of venue that is feasible for you to fill to, you know, reasonable capacity? Are you able to meet the financial obligations associated with those venues? So yeah, those are certainly the first things you kind of want to think about um, when looking to produce your own show.
Definitely. And then as a director, when you're thinking of producing your own show, like Jen said, you're really thinking of the budget of that show, and you're really thinking to how that show can sustain you financially throughout the year, potentially. So what I recommend as a director is to invite guest artists, not only to build a network and to build great relationships with other companies and to produce their work, but also because they will bring in other audience members, people who haven't necessarily seen your work before. So with that, you are expanding your audience just by including other artists. We're strengthening the dance community by doing so. And you never know, you might collaborate with another artist who you were in their show and you figure out an amazing collaboration with them that sustains your company in ways you didn't even think before.
One of the ways that we do that at OnStage, because our main productions don't lend themselves to collaborating in that way, but I always offer a specific discount for local dancers and local dance companies. I usually send, you know, some kind of code out to directors, and, you know, the goal being to have them come and see the show, because it does lead to collaborations later on, and it gets more people in the dance community to know who you are. Often when you're first starting out, who are your audience? It's, you know, your mom and dad, your family, your immediate family, significant others, maybe a coworker if you're lucky. But how do you shift from, you know, your immediate family to people outside of your circle? Because that's the ultimate goal, right, as a dance company director. Because otherwise you could just be doing shows in your living room, inviting your friends, right? So the point of performing in a larger venue, even if it is just 50 seats, which is a significant amount, you know, how can you bring other eyes onto your work, and other people starting to get invested and interested in what you're doing? So yeah, thinking about how to collaborate, whether actually on the stage or, you know, in the way that you're inviting others or marketing and so forth. And
Definitely.
you know, thinking about how we choose our venue is really important. On stage, we have been at the View Dance Theater for many years, and that size works really well. You know, we think about how many dancers do we have, how many tickets can we feasibly sell, you know, how much does it cost to rent this venue, and then what's the breakdown, right, on how we cover those costs. Are we walking away with any profit? Are we breaking even? How important is that for our sustainability going forward? Because, you know, if we're not earning anything from the show, you know, you really have to kind of step back and think about if you need to reevaluate what kind of venue you're in, what's the scope of your show, or even if you're ready to have made that leap in the first place. So yeah, choosing the venue is going to be a real key factor in how your show will be successful.
And I will use this as an opportunity to highlight a lot of the opportunities that OnStage Dance Company offers that I will toot Jen's horn a little bit here. For one, the space is huge and you can have an intimate audience at the same time. You can accommodate many different sizes of groups while also not feeling like you have to pack a 150-person theater. You can really manipulate her space to accommodate the show that you want to. And she also, as she mentioned, she has OnStage 360, the residency program, her summer and fall series. These are opportunities for emerging artists that are incredible because they are at times collaborative shows where you can meet other artists. They're, you know, opportunities to have larger performances of your rep if that's what you're ready for. So if you were at wherever you are at your point in creating, there's probably an opportunity at OnStage that will work for you. And then for Nozama, we are always, we have had guest artists in our show, but what I am really excited that we are going to be doing with co-producing with OnStage is that Empower One Another this year is going to be virtual. And so we are going to be doing a virtual performance via Zoom on Saturday, September 26th. And we're going to ask performers to submit videos of past pieces that they would like to have receive more exposure, but also videos of pieces that they've been working on since they've been in quarantine, now that we're able to be outside. So we are looking to create a show still around the themes of empowerment, but this is an opportunity for artists to contribute videos of theirs and to get exposure without, us having to have those collaborative rehearsals. And so there's already an opportunity here for emerging artists to have their work be seen by more people, which I'm excited. And to Jen's point about creating a budget and figuring out what's going to, help the sustainability of your company, we always think about money and how can our company make money. And that is a topic in and of itself, which we will cover on Monday, July 20th at 7 p.m. We're going to be talking about all things funding and fundraising. We have an amazing panel coming up, and so we will be answering questions from everything to building a grant donor base to figuring out how to apply for grants how to build a donor base, how to begin applying for grants, what fundraising models work best for your company. We're going to cover all these topics. So if you have questions specifically regarding funding and fundraising, email us with those and we will incorporate them into this webinar. We really want to talk all things money.
Mm-hmm. And I think also, something that you said, Gracie, earlier, it's a business, and that's something that's really hard, I think, for a lot of artists to embrace, because we want to think of ourselves as artists. We're not business people, but you are, whether you'd like to be or not, you are. By taking on that director role, you have to be thinking about the business side of everything. And so that's why I'm really excited that we're going to be diving in specifically to funding and fundraising, because that's such a huge component of running a company, and it has to be at the forefront of your mind in all the decisions that you make.
Definitely. So that'll be the second webinar as a part of this Empower One Another webinar series. The third one is going to be collaboration between artists, which is what Empower One Another is all about. So what we are doing for our third webinar on Sunday, August 9th at noon, we are inviting artists to come and to tell us what they are looking for in a collaboration. Are you looking for an artist to work with on a certain concept that you've been thinking of? Are you looking for a graphic designer who can help you out? I have to give a major shout out to my co-director, Natalie Shara, who designed all of the graphics for this Empower One Another webinar series. So are you looking for someone like that? Do you have an idea and you just need people? We want to bring artists together into this virtual space to have some conversations and do a little bit of artist matchmaking. So this is going to be pretty free form. We're really excited about it. So also email us if you have any ideas, if you're looking for someone, so that we can use this as a time to say, so-and-so wants to create this, and they're, looking for someone like that. We have a person in mind, so we can, jumpstart into the fall with some new collaborations.
Yeah, I love
even if they have to be virtual ones.
I love the matchmaking description you use. It's almost like, artist speed dating or something. And to clarify that last one is not just for directors, so it could be anybody who is involved in dance in any way. I would even say, musicians or something like that would even be
definitely
collaboration. So sort of broadening the scope for the third one to create as many matchmaking special connections as we can.
Yeah, and definitely for the second one as well. We are not just it's not just for directors. We can all learn a little bit about dance funding and fundraising. It helps to keep this dance community thriving, to all understand how the underbellies of it work. So we invite everyone to join these, and any questions, comments, concerns, feelings, follow-up. I apologize immensely for my misspelling for OnStage with the S here, but this is our contact information. These are our Instagram handles and our emails. Reach out, anything at all, anything that you gained from this, any questions you might have, any feedback you're looking for. At the end of the day, Jen and I are looking to build a network of artists and directors who share resource, who share experiences, who don't feel like they're going at this alone. We really started this whole Empower One Another series based on that feeling of, this is really hard, and I wish I just had some people who knew what I was going through and would help me navigate this. And having mentors and peers is crucial. Nozama has many, Jen has many, OnStage has many. To have, if you are looking for mentors, peers, you have found them. So don't be a stranger, reach out.
Absolutely, thank you, Gracie.
Thanks, Jen. If anyone has any questions, we are here, we will stay, we can talk them out, we can go back to any slide. But otherwise, we just really thank you all for joining the first webinar of our Empower One Another series, the Roundtable Directors webinars. And we will see you next on Monday, July 20th. Thanks, everybody.
Let's see, I'm just taking a look at,
Looking at the chat.
Gracie, have you looked at Madison's comment here?
Heck yeah. Would love to learn more about individual artists growing and making the steps towards becoming directors pre-company work. I like this. That going back to that prequel. Doesn't have to be a later discussion. We can talk a little bit about it now. I think, so Madison, I'm going to interpret this question as, I really like that phrase, the pre-company work. Like, what are the initial steps? What are the things that I should think about if I want to build a company? I think that the initial things that come to mind are to really think about the vision. Going back to that first slide, and we'll make this PowerPoint available. Really going back to that first slide and thinking of, what stories am I looking to tell? What's my mission? What's my voice? What kind of stories do I want to tell? And then thinking about, in that, coming up with your mission statement and how you would really set yourself apart from others. And then looking for people who you can dance with. I mean, if you want to create a solo company, that is also incredible. And there are many opportunities for that. But coming up with, where can I find dancers? And that could be hosting independent auditions, the BDA auditions we mentioned. There's an array, reaching out to other companies and saying, hey, can you help me with organizing an audition? Those kinds of opportunities. Or just first creating a piece for a festival. I think Dance for World Community is a great example of that, of creating a piece just for a performance. Same with Jen, if you want to create a piece just for OnStage 360 or something like that, maybe starting just with, what story do I want to tell, and let me find an opportunity to tell it. Jen, what do you think about some pre-company work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking more about making the steps towards becoming directors. I'm curious if you, Madison, you could elaborate more on that, because I feel like there's something really interesting there.
I took myself off mute because it's easier than typing.
Yeah, this is easier.
I was thinking mostly, like, right now I'm part of a company, but I'm not leading a company. Eventually I would like to get there and kind of have a leadership role within the dance community. And I'm trying to figure out, like, what's my timeline? What does my trajectory look like? What should I be kind of thinking about and planning for as I move forward, rather than just jumping straight into producing a show? Obviously, there's several stairs between where I am now and where that is. So,
well, first I'll say that you are like a mile ahead of where I was when I first started OnStage, because I was like, oh, let me just dive into the deep end, knowing absolutely nothing about anything. But I really want to dance on stage. And, so first I just want to acknowledge that the fact that you're thinking about all the planning so far in advance is phenomenal, and it's going to help you immensely. So kudos to you on that. That's amazing. But yeah, I think that, thinking ahead, that's why I love that we were doing this webinar today, because yeah, I think Gracie and I can both speak to the fact that when we were first starting, we didn't really have the opportunity for formal mentorship, or there weren't, I know at least for OnStage when we first started 10 years ago, there really weren't many dance companies at the time. I mean, in the last decade, the community has exploded. I mean, there's just so many awesome groups and companies that just didn't exist even 3-5 years ago. So we really were kind of flying by the seat of our pants at the time. And it was a lot of trial and error, and it was sort of figuring out what works and what doesn't. And then at the same time, the greater local community was also developing and growing at the same time. So kind of figuring out how we fit into that. So yeah, I think my main point is just that anything you can do to think everything as much as you can, think through in advance before you hit the gas on this is really going to determine how far and how fast you can go when you first.
But Jen gave a phrase that I think is key to pre-company work, which is formal mentorship. Having a mentor, having somebody who is experienced, who you can email, call with questions, is a great advantage in a lot of ways. That person will be available to review rehearsal videos, or even just if you're playing with movement and you're saying, I'm trying to figure out the voice of my choreography, I'm trying to figure out where my choreography falls, they will be helpful for that. They can also be a peer, but I think that formal mentorship is just so helpful. When Natalie and I started with Nozama, that was very much Mickey Taylor Pinney. It was the director of our dance program in college. Our mentorship has evolved substantially. We have numerous mentors who assist with everything from grant opportunities and fundraising. I have to give an immense amount of credit to Karen Krolak and Nicole Harris of Monkey House, who are incredible mentors for Nozama. It's just like having people who can really give you that feedback, that honest feedback in real time. And if you're saying, you know what, I really just don't have a name in mind, I don't have a director from college, I would say be bold enough to, well, first of all, email us and we can help you, but also to be bold enough to email directors of companies that you respect and to say, I saw your work, I admire your company, I'd love to interview you for an hour and hear about how you got started. People love nothing more than to talk about their backstory, and they will respect that you ask the question and you will learn a lot. Just being brave enough to ask the question is huge. And the fact that you are asking this question now, I think you will have zero problem in this department.
And be open to seeking mentorship from people who are different from what you do. I see there's a question here about non-concert style dance. And, I personally can't speak to that very much because that's very outside of what I do. But there's something to be said about, just because you're a modern dancer doesn't mean that your mentor has to be a modern dancer also. It could, there's a lot to be learned from people who are in different dance communities, dance styles. So yeah, being open to sort of explore beyond your inner circle, and respect being a huge component of that, because we talked about being able to take in that negative feedback or constructive feedback or whatever it is, and you have to be able to do that, and it's much easier to do that when the feedback you're getting is from somebody that you respect and okay, they know what they're talking about. So if they're telling me I really need to step back or need to reevaluate something, I'm really going to take what they are saying to heart, because there's that level of respect there.
Yeah. And to the question about non-concert style dance companies, I think that really goes back to finding your voice, establishing your mission statement. I think one of the things that budding directors often think about is, what am I missing in the dance community? What am I hoping to see that I haven't seen yet? And think about that and journal about that for a little bit. You know, I can't necessarily come up with that list now because it's unique to you, but when Natalie and I were coming up with the origins of Nozama, it really was speaking to what kind of work do we want to see women doing in the Boston dance community right now, and what kind of work do we want to be a part of? So building what you are feeling the community is missing, and figure out what kind of things you'd like to see, can definitely expand to what kind of performances you'd like to see. And so if you sit with that and you think about, what do I feel is missing, or what do I feel like there could be more opportunity for? What do I feel like I could add? Then you sit with that and think, okay, is it that I want to create this style of performance? Is it that I want to create pieces that speak to something I haven't seen, that don't lend themselves to a traditional stage venue? And in that, you really want to think about, okay, so if I want to be creating these kind of, you know, non-traditional performance opportunities, I think that's even greater to reach out to this network of directors or artists that you've seen and to say, you know, I have an idea for this collaboration. It's a little outside the box, but what do you think? And you can really build some creative things with that, especially in this whole world of virtual dance and outdoor performance. I feel like there's going to be some really cool non-concert style things happening, and collaboration is going to be key.
Mm-hmm. I think you touched on a bunch of different things, and like, you know, I'm going off in different tangents of like, oh, I have a comment on that, I have a comment on that. But I think setting yourself apart from the greater Boston dance community is going to be so essential because, you know, as I said, that the community has exploded in the past decade. There are more companies than I ever thought there would be based on, you know, 10 years ago. And you want to make sure that you're not just another group that does X, Y, Z, right? You're not just another group that does the same thing that somebody else does. How do you set yourself apart? And that goes to, you know, just, I mean, obviously you want to put on a show that's really exciting and different and, you know, pushing the boundaries. But we also had a whole section about, you know, applying for festivals and applying for grants. And if, you know, the producer or the grant funder is seeing, you know, 20 applications and it's all the same thing, they're all discussing the same thing, they're all showing the same kind of work, then what is it going to be that sets you apart that makes them want to invest in you or select you? So maybe for you it's a non-concert style dance experience, or something outside of the box. And Gracie bringing up how, you know, the switch to virtual has really, like, I think it sort of jolted us for a minute, but I think that as artists and creators, we've really embraced it. I mean, that's what we do. We're creative people. So, you know, we take on those challenges, I think, a lot easier than some other types of people. And, you know, the way that I've seen the community adapt, whether it's reinventing shows, you know, switching things to virtual, incorporating more video work, incorporating, you know, working with people that are not even in the same state. I think there's a lot of opportunity right now in this moment, given what's happening nationally and globally, to really seize upon those kind of creative opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. And so with our virtual Empower One Another, Jen and I are not looking at it as, oh shoot, I guess we have to do this instead. We're looking at it as, this is an incredible opportunity to highlight work in a way that we wouldn't have ordinarily been able to. This is a way to highlight past work that deserves to be seen. And this is a way to highlight work that people have created in these more unique circumstances. And so we're essentially empowering one another to continue to create and continue to collaborate and to, as Jen said, do what we do best. Be creative, be innovative, adapt, come up with, you know, a new tweak to the model. So I'm really excited to see what this turns into. I look at it as a big opportunity. So this is, I think, a great time for emerging artists because we're looking for new voices. We're looking for innovation. We're looking for adaptation. We're looking for things that are outside the quote unquote norm. You know, we were talking about what Nozama's next season is going to look like. And we had to kind of pause and say, well, it's not going to look exactly like last season. We're going to make tweaks regardless. So this is an awesome time for artists who have new things to bring to the table to really get to sink their teeth into all of this. It's exciting. So I think that wraps up the questions. If anyone has any more, definitely email us. We will post on the event, the information. So thank you all for joining us. We're really excited. And be sure to join us on July 20th for our conversation about funding and fundraising.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.